Hey YouTube. Well, it's Thursday and it's around 7 o'clock in the evening and I didn't get any work done today, but you can see how hot it was in the kiln. 100 degrees it is, and it's still, you know, it wasn't running today, but it's still pretty hot in there compared to, you know, the temperature outside. But anyway, probably around 70 or so, 68 degrees. The problem is this morning it started to rain, so I figured I wasn't going to get anything done here, and Sally and I ended up going shopping, which I always hate. But anyway, so we had supper or dinner, and I'm going to work on trying to get some of this wood planed. There's not that much of it left anymore, but there's a couple layers there. Most of this is maple. I think there's some red oak on the very bottom. Can't wait to get to the red oak. This maple was from that goofy tree that was twisted so bad, so there's not a whole lot of really good stuff there. But anyway, I'm gonna see if I can't get some wood planed and put on the forks to put away for tomorrow. I don't know if you can tell or not, but that board's twisted pretty badly. But it's a good looking piece of wood, and it's hard sometimes. You know, when I'm doing a lot of planing and I'm getting good boards, and all of a sudden I get a board that's twisted like this, sometimes I'll just throw it on the scrap pile over here. But you know, when you're getting started and the first board you pick up is twisted, it kind of mentally, I guess, does some gymnastics, because it kind of makes you want to hang on to it when it looks this good. But like I say, it's got a pretty good twist to it. But there's a piece here that's about 6 or 7 feet long, maybe 6 feet, that's actually pretty nice looking. So it's hard to know what to do with some of this stuff, especially when you know that you can cut it up yourself. It's different. If I was gonna sell this to somebody, I wouldn't sell it to them. But you know, I mean, a lot of times people will take stuff and do different things with it. But I wouldn't sell this, like put it on, you know, on a rack for sale. But I know for myself, I can cut it into smaller pieces and use it. You can see how hard it was to plane that, because it was the board is bent so badly. I'll take a look at it here. You can see there's well, if you look at it that way, you can see there's a little bend 3/4 of the way down there, and then it also goes like this at the very end, which isn't it's not that bad. I mean, like I say, there's a part of a straight part of this. The good thing about this is that the wood is good. You know, the wood's not bad. It's not cracked. It doesn't have barely a check in it. That check's outside the 8-foot mark, actually. So it's worth keeping. Obviously, the bow that's in it's going to have to be resawn, and that's part of the problem here. I ought to be resawing a lot of this stuff as I go, but it's too much for me to plane and do the resawing and everything because I'll spend too much time on one board. Sometimes it's easier to just take a bunch of boards, put them together and saw them into a certain size and go from that. Now you can tell just by looking at this next one here, and I don't know what happened from here down, like where the red oak starts. There's two maple, and then it's all red oak. The rest of that red oak is nice and flat. This maple, you can see how hard it pulled up off the stake here. It literally come right up off the sticker, and it held the whole pile like that. That stuff was just not wanting to lay down. So I'm lucky I only have 2 more courses of maple to contend with, and then I can get to some really good red oak down there. Because like I say, it's a lot harder to plane when you're planing something that's not exactly flat. But you know, I don't get a lot of maple. I get pretty, like right now I have pretty much maple here, but I don't get a lot of maple. But I get enough that when it looks good, it's worth keeping. Especially like I say, because I'll be the one cutting it up, you know, rather than just trying to sell it. But when you look at these boards after they've been planed, they look a lot better than they do before they're planed. The good thing though that's happening is even though the board is twisted, in other words, the board has been twisted, you know, lengthwise, even though it's twisted, a lot of times as long as you thin it down to the 3/4 of an inch, you can get it to, looks like it wants to go for a walk. You can get the board to be flat even though it has a bow in it. The other thing about working out here in where I'm working is if you get anything, like when the board drops like that, if you get anything on the board and you run it through the planer, the smallest nick in the planer blade will show up in the board. And you know, the way I look at it is, if I can scuff off a nick, you know, it leaves a raised part on the board. If I can scuff that off with 180, and you know, and me having the knowledge to do it, if I know I can scuff it off with a piece of 180 sandpaper, I let it go. But once it gets beyond that, you sort of got to stop and regroup, change the blades or whatever. Now the blade that's in there has actually planed well, let's say a half of the kiln's lumber, so I can take that blade and turn it around now to get the sharp side up, because it's a new blade that I put on. Okay guys, I set the camera up. I hope you can hear me. I set the camera up like this because I want you to know I do have a lot of nice lumber. Believe me, I pick out a lot of the choicest stuff, and you know, I keep it to the side. I try not to waste my time on stuff. All of this maple that's laying here, and I'm going to page through it just to give you a good look at it. All of this maple that's laying here came from that really badly bent tree that I cut last year. That was my neighbor's, and he actually used some of this to put siding, vertical siding, on part of the house. And personally, I don't like the way it came out because the wood, it's just, there was something wrong with this wood. But anyway, if you take a look at this, and I think you might be able to, I don't know how well you can see that, but the knots that are on there are huge. Like the knot circle where it ends on this particular knot is, I don't know, probably 20 inches long. The one up there is probably 15 inches long. If I was grading white pine, this would be considered like an industrial wood. In other words, something that you would sell to a factory who's maybe stapling pallets together, or it's even borderline pallet wood if you ask me. I mean, I'm sure that he would use it for that, but I'm just saying, these type of boards. And the other thing that I'd like you to look at there is, if you look at how crooked that is, every board has that same bow in it because of the knot that's up there. That knot stopped this thing from drying, and that little bit of pressure that's in there, even though the board's laying fairly flat because of the planer, that pressure that was at both ends created this knot because it couldn't shrink where the knot is. So you can see, you know, looking down there, just how crooked that thing is. All right, so that's one. That's the last one. Now, this one here doesn't have near the size knots. This one here has two knots in it. They're about 2 inches in diameter. Even this has a little bit of a crook or bow to it. Not a bow. I think the bow's the other way. It's like a little bit of a bend, but it's not real bad, and it's a nice looking board. Now, if you notice the cut, I mean, look at that gap in there. This one's really bad. This one's fairly bad, but it's not from the sawmill, because the sawmill cut them a lot straighter. And if you look down it, like right where this second knot is here, you can see that it just did not shrink the same, and it caused that wood there to stay wider. So these boards have to be resawn before they can be used. Now this one, let me just show you. If you look at it there, you can see that it's twisted. In other words, this end is twisted this way, that end's twisted that way. But still, in the middle, you know, you might be able to pull some stuff out of that. And if you were nailing this down onto something, onto a frame of some sort, you would probably be able to pull it fairly flat, especially if you were making it thin, if you were cutting it thin for like pallet wood, you know. Now take a look at this one. Look at the size of that knot. That whole brown spot up there is basically a knot. Same with this one. And you know, knots that big are a problem because the boards can act up. Now, if this was pine, this would be, like I say, industrial graded wood. That's not, the amazing thing here with the maple is that it didn't come apart. I would expect something like that to make this come apart. So because it didn't, there's some interesting stuff there. I don't like the stain that's in there. I don't know how that stain got in there. Probably when the tree started growing around the branch, it looks like there may have been dirt or something fallen into the crook of the tree and may have started that like that. But again, this one's, it's twisted, it's also bent. The amazing thing about these is they're not really cupped that bad, if at all, okay? In fact, it doesn't look like they're cupped. Now they're bent and there's a twist to them, okay? But no cupping. Now here's one here has, well, it has, you know, grain to it, but it's not a knot, cathedral grain, small pin knot there. Up at that end's a little bit bigger knot. This isn't a bad board. This one here is more from the center of the tree. And this one isn't a bad board, you know, as far as knots go. Now, this one here I couldn't get through the planer because it's bent so bad this way that it was forcing itself to raise up in the planer and would stop. So this end didn't get planed, this side didn't get planed all that well. Okay, so then here you have this other one. You can see, I'm pretty sure just how bowed or bent this way that board is. And you know, unless you're going to cut these into smaller pieces, there's not a lot you can do with them. Now here's a nice looking board as far as the wood goes, as far as clearness, okay? It's a nice looking board. It's not really bent that bad. Let me just put it right in front of the camera there. It's not bent bad. It's got a twist to it. No cupping though, okay? It's not cupped. It's got a twist. So again, the only thing that can be done with these is to cut them into small pieces and use them for stuff, you know, like maybe furniture, if you find a flat spot, which, you know, I have flat spots, maybe a drawer, an interesting looking drawer face. Maybe able to make some styles from this that would be interesting. Of course, when you're making styles for a door and stuff, you really want some good wood that's not going to move on you later on, you know. And some of this stuff, I don't think it's going to move anymore because it's so dry. But this, I'm just trying to show you that it's not all gravy, okay? It's, you know, sometimes you work hard and you get pretty much a load of crap depending upon the tree. Now let me just show you this. From the entire kiln here, let's see what I have left with oak. I have one, two, three, four, five, 6 layers of oak, except for that last board. That's not oak. That last board over there is maple, and I'm going to toss that because it's split. So I've got a lot of red oak here, and you'll see the major difference in how this red oak, which is a nice tree, comes out. I mean, you can tell just by looking at the grain of this. The grain, you can follow the grain almost all the way down the board. So when you get cuts like that, yeah, some insulation. After you get this thing going, especially in winter at night when it gets cool, sometimes I get some mouse or two in here. Looks like the one had started building a house, but it doesn't hurt anything. It doesn't hurt the wood. It's not like I like it. And I found one mouse in this whole pile that had been sort of kiln dried, believe me. But you know, it is what it is. I'm in the country, and that's how things go. But anyway, I'm going to run one of these pieces of oak through here, and I'll show you the difference in how nice this oak will be. And then I'm going to call it quits for today. But I got to change the blades around because it's getting late already. It's around 8 o'clock. So I want to change the blades around, turn them around in the planer, so I'm not, you know, wasting my time with this oak. The other thing, I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, it's right here. I don't know if you can zoom in on that, or if you can focus on that or see that, but that right in front of my finger, that's actually there's a nick in the blade of the planer. It's been putting this little line in here, but it's barely visible. Barely visible. You can see one right here. Barely visible. I know it's there because I've been watching it, and but usually, you know, somebody would probably not see that. But nonetheless, you'd have to sand it out because when you went to, you know, make something out of these, you don't want that high spot in there because it'll cast a shadow depending on the light, and then you will see it. But yeah, let me change the blades around, and then I'll show you what the red oak looks like compared to this maple. It's just a bad tree. Now this maple here, I'm expecting to get some nice pieces of wood out of this. This one here. But we'll check later on. I'm not going to be cutting maple right away. I need to start cutting white pine as soon as I get cleaned up here. Okay guys, so I just wanted you to take a look at that oak. Now this is red oak. It's from a much better tree, and you can tell just by the little bit of gap that's in it. There's not that much. Now, let me turn this around. Now there's some sapwood on this board here, and there's a little bit of a bow in it, but it's just a lot nicer. The grains, you can follow the grain all the way down through the board pretty much. It's not cut perfectly with the tree, and we've got some sapwood here and some sapwood on this side on both boards. But nonetheless, you know, you're just getting, when you have a good tree, you can get some nice lumber without any, you know, really bad marks or anything to it. This oak was not cupped at all. I just ran it through, I changed the blades, ran it through twice each time because it was a full inch to bring it down to 3/4. But you can see just how nice they fit together and stuff there. And that's the difference between, you know, when you have something that's not as good, like a tree that's not as good. Now this is not to say that, you know, maple's not as good a wood as oak, because maple certainly is. It's just, I mean, even if you look down the side here, now there's a little piece of a flitch off of there. But you can see how nice they're staying together pretty much all the way down. I mean, you know, it doesn't take much to make them come together, whereas you can see that some of these are, the tension is still in there, you know, whereas there's tension in the board, but it's not near as bad as what's in that other tree that I cut there, or the boards from the other tree. But I'm just saying, you know, you can get some nice stuff, and this is mainly the type of oak that I have. When I first started cutting, you know, I was so excited to be able to have boards again that I was saving a lot of stuff that I shouldn't have saved. And this is the problem. Like, you figure that this maple, for instance, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, there's 8 boards there. Now, that's 8 boards from what, about an hour or so of cutting or less, planing. Now imagine me taking these 8 boards and, you know, every day I have 8 boards, every day I have 8 boards. The next thing you know, you've got, I think it took me 5 days total, or it will take me 5 total days to be able to plane all this wood. I'm not working all day at this, I have other stuff to do, but I'm just saying, say it took 5 days, I don't know, maybe 25 hours to do all these boards. The thing that you're after here is now every 25 hours or every 5 hours you're going to have, you know, so many bad boards if you're saving that stuff. And that's why I recommend that if it doesn't look good to you off the sawmill, then just get rid of it, you know. That's my opinion. Now, it depends on who you're selling to. I mean, a lot of guys want different kind of things. Some people may love the fact that this maple has a bend in it. For me, I'm looking for straight, flat, not cupped. I want nice wood, nice lumber, because I want to be able to, the type of furniture I'm making is not like, I don't even know what style you'd call that, but it's not that stuff that's just a natural edge and all. I'm going more for Victorian, or, you know, something like that type of furniture. So I want nice square edges and everything so that I can work the wood however I want to. But anyway, just saying about the oak, you know, the difference between how it looks. Now you can see there's some cupping on the end of that. This obviously was painted. The cupping only goes in there about an inch, or not cupping, splits. It only goes in there, or checks, only goes in there about an inch. This one here, about an inch. And I always make the boards 8'3", so there's 3 inches of wood that can come off of this. It allows for me to be able to cut any kind of, you know, check, or I forget what you call it, snipe, any snipe off as well, if I have any. But otherwise, guys, that's it for today. It must be close to 9, and I've had it for one day. I actually was bringing logs over here today. One of my neighbors cut some trees, some old red oak down. This is one of the logs. This is the worst of the logs. There's 3 other ones that are, it was so rotted that the bark fell off the tree. However, when you tap the middle of it, it's solid. In other words, when I hit the middle of each end, it's solid. There's nothing soft in there about it. So even though there may be some bug holes, like there's something was in there, I believe I might get some nice boards out of here. And he wants the boards, so I'll sort of split them with him as payment for getting them out of his yard. I'll cut these into a cant, and then he'll take the flitches for firewood, and then he'll also take some of the boards, and I'll keep some boards. That'll be, you know, what I'll consider a payment. Now, like I say, this is the worst of them, so it's really not that bad, but we'll see when we open it up. I set it here close to the mill because I'm actually going to put it on the mill first. I don't like owing my neighbor something, even if it's a favor. If I tell him I'm going to do something, I want to get it done right away. So I'll probably cut up his logs first when I start to mill up again, just to get them off my back. And then, and has nothing to do with him. It's my own way of thinking. Alright, so I'm going to clean up some more of that stuff there, plain shavings, and then that's it for today. Have a good one, guys.